The dense, humid air of Earth's forests was uncomfortable for the Sthani, a species accustomed to cooler, thinner atmospheres and technological ease. Their scout ship hovered just above the treetops, its cloaking systems blending seamlessly into the foliage. Thralar, a scientist known for his sharp intellect and precise observations, peered down through his viewfinder, cataloging his impressions of the strange creatures below. Humans. They were intriguing, a species so close to spacefaring status yet so rudimentary by Sthani standards. For weeks, Thralar had studied their broadcast signals and examined their limited off-world technology. The analysis reports classified humanity as a low-level intelligent species, prone to violence and reliant on primitive methods of survival. They were fascinating, though. Their unpredictability warranted further study, and Thralar was determined to understand these strange beings. But as he observed the activity below, he found himself more perplexed than fascinated. The human soldiers were arrayed in what they seemed to consider tactical formations. Several of them were armed with what the Sthani database identified as guns, tools used to fire metal projectiles. Guns. Thralar could barely contain his incredulity. For the Sthani, the concept of using metal projectiles to cause harm was as foreign as wielding stone clubs. He zoomed in further, his eye widening as he watched a soldier raise the weapon and take aim at a distant target. The soldier's face was set in grim concentration as he fired, the gun producing a loud crack that echoed through the forest. A small puff of smoke drifted from the barrel, and Thralar's sensors picked up traces of burnt carbon particulates in the air. It was an anachronism come to life, a relic from some bygone age of violence. What primitive beings, Thralar muttered, shaking his head. Still using gunpowder and metal to solve their problems. They haven't even progressed to basic energy weapons. His words seemed to echo among the other Sthani in the ship's cabin. They exchanged bemused glances, their elongated, luminescent faces reflecting mild amusement. Unlike humans, the Sthani had abandoned projectile weapons eons ago. Their own weapons used concentrated beams of energy that could neutralize a target with precision and without causing excessive collateral damage. The concept of using simple, loud, crude tools for combat was laughable to them. Thralar recorded his observations, tagging each data point with notes. Low intelligence species. Aggressive tendencies. Primitive weaponry with limited effectiveness. Satisfied with his conclusions, he decided it was time to initiate first contact. Humans, he thought, would be awestruck by the Sthani's advanced technology and scientific superiority. In his mind, it would be a simple exchange, knowledge for their awe. He activated the ship's communication system and sent a non-hostile frequency pulse, designed to signal their presence in a way no species could mistake. The human patrol immediately stiffened. They exchanged sharp words in their own guttural language, their eyes darting toward the tree line. Thralar's sensors registered a spike in their heart rates, a clear sign of fear, he assumed. Just as he prepared to descend and make contact, a sudden flash blinded him. He staggered back, his vision flickering as his sensor readings spiked. Something had pierced the side of the ship, grazing the exterior hull just near the observation deck. What just happened? Thralar stammered, his heart pounding in confusion. His sensors analyzed the breach and identified the culprit, a solid projectile, one of their bullets. Did they shoot at us? One of his colleagues asked, his voice quivering with both alarm and disbelief. With that thing? Thralar examined the readings again, his mind struggling to comprehend the data. The projectile had impacted with enough force to damage their hull, despite its advanced materials. He looked again at the humans below, watching as they reloaded their weapons, eyes focused on the treetops. These primitive creatures had just damaged a Sthani vessel. Astonishment gave way to irritation. His pride as a scientist and Sthani was stung. They clearly didn't realize who we are, he muttered. And now they've taken an act of aggression against us. His irritation faded into something else, a cautious respect. These beings, for all their primitiveness, had managed to threaten a Sthani craft with a weapon they'd written off centuries ago. He considered the human's weapon carefully, watching the way they handled it, the look of deadly intent in their eyes. In that moment he felt the chill of uncertainty. Let's pull back, he said quietly. These creatures might be more than we expected. The ship ascended, retreating into the clouds. As the human patrol scanned the treetops, unaware that their first alien encounter had ended, Thralar was already lost in thought, recalibrating his assumptions. Primitive though they were, humans had just proven they might be a more complex, dangerous force than the Sthani had anticipated. Let's return with reinforcements and a new approach, Thralar announced, already compiling his report. This wasn't over, he had to know more. The human's strange ways might hide an unexpected strength, and Thralar had every intention of discovering it. Thralar couldn't shake the unsettling memory of the human patrol from his mind. That tiny metal projectile had damaged their hull, an outcome so improbable it felt surreal. As a scientist, he was driven by curiosity and he needed answers. Why were humans still using such a primitive weapon? Was it necessity or preference? Back on their orbital vessel, Thralar requested an in-person meeting with a small group of human soldiers and their commanding officer, Colonel Avery. Though hesitant, the humans agreed, meeting in a secured, neutral location on Earth's surface. Thralar and two of his fellow Thani diplomats descended in a smaller, lightly shielded craft, setting down in a clearing surrounded by thick, towering pines. The air was filled with the earthy scent of pine needles, mingled with a faint, metallic tang. Colonel Avery, tall and strong, extended a firm hand. Thralar hesitated, then accepted, attempting the human gesture of shaking hands. The alien diplomat winced at the strength in Avery's grip. He hadn't expected so much physical force from a mere greeting. After brief formalities, Thralar couldn't contain his curiosity any longer. "Colonel," he began, his luminescent eyes narrowing slightly. "We have observed your weapons. They're unique in that they rely on projectile mechanics. It's an ancient concept. Why do humans continue using these metal-slinging weapons?" Colonel Avery chuckled softly, clearly accustomed to the question. "You mean bullets," he replied. "Simple reason really, they work." He saw the confusion in Thralar's expression and elaborated. "Projectile weapons are reliable, versatile, and easy to manufacture. They don't need complex technology to repair in a pinch. In rough conditions or unpredictable terrain, a gun will still fire when a high-tech weapon might fail." Thralar considered this. The Thani valued precision and sophistication, not redundancy. Surely, though, with access to greater technology, you would advance past such primitive tools? One of the soldiers, standing nearby, chimed in, holding up his rifle. "See, here's the thing, this rifle? It can be used in forests, deserts, jungles, or snow. If I run out of ammunition, I can find or make new rounds. We don't always have the luxury of high-tech environments or energy to spare. This kind of weapon gives us freedom, and sometimes, in war, simplicity is an advantage." Thralar's mind raced, turning over these answers. The concept of simplicity as a strength was foreign to the Thani, who saw it as a limitation. But for humans it seemed to be a point of pride. There was also a cold practicality to their approach, a sense that humans didn't trust advanced technology as fully as the Thani did. They valued tools that wouldn't betray them in the heat of battle. So, Thralar concluded slowly, this choice, this reliance on bullets, is not a lack of intelligence. It's a calculated decision for adaptability. Colonel Avery nodded. "Exactly. We're survivors. Our weapons reflect that. And if you're ever in a tight spot with one of these," he patted his rifle with a grin, "you'll understand why we stick with them." The exchange ended with Thralar in quiet awe. He had come expecting to enlighten a primitive species, yet he was leaving with newfound respect for a culture whose resilience was embedded in every choice they made, even their choice of weapons. The Thani couldn't ignore what they'd learned about humans and their weapons. Thralar, fascinated and eager to understand humanity's approach to combat, proposed a tactical exercise. To his surprise, Colonel Avery accepted with a grin, seeming to relish the challenge. The terms were simple: a simulated skirmish in a dense forest, each side using non-lethal rounds. The Thani's energy pulses would be calibrated to harmlessly tag a target, while the humans would use paint rounds. The humans and Thani gathered on opposite ends of the forest. Thralar and his Thani team wore advanced sensory headgear that connected to their cloaked drones, giving them a complete map of the forest's terrain. They anticipated a straightforward match, planning to use their technology to locate and disable each human combatant with precision. Thralar signaled his team to spread out. "Remember," he said through their comms, "these are primitive beings with outdated weapons. Focus on precision. Strike quickly." But things didn't go as planned. Within minutes, their scanners picked up only fleeting glimpses of movement. The humans weren't advancing in a straightforward line. Instead, they were scattering, moving through the underbrush, blending with the shadows and natural cover. Thralar's sensors picked up the sound of branches snapping, yet every time he directed a pulse in that direction, he hit nothing but air. Frustration prickled at him. "Where are they?" he muttered. Then, without warning, a splash of red paint hit the shoulder of one of his team members. Another was tagged moments later, bright blue paint splattering his back. Thralar's heart raced as he recalibrated his scanners, trying to lock onto the elusive humans. But they were ghosts, appearing and disappearing in ways his technology struggled to predict. Meanwhile, Colonel Avery was guiding his team through the forest with quick, clipped commands. Keep it scattered, stay low. Use the trees for cover. His soldiers moved with ease, using their knowledge of the terrain to keep themselves concealed, pushing closer to the Stanny team in coordinated strikes. Thralar fired off another pulse, only for it to ricochet harmlessly off a tree. Suddenly, a human soldier appeared directly to his left, seemingly out of nowhere, paint gun raised. Thralar's eyes widened, and before he could react, a green splatter landed squarely on his chest. The human gave a quick nod, almost respectful, before vanishing into the forest. Thralar's team was forced into retreat. In their debrief, he reviewed the exercise footage, piecing together the human tactics. Every movement, every strike, was methodical yet adaptable, capitalizing on the environment in ways his drones and energy weapons couldn't match. Colonel Avery met him afterward with a knowing grin. You rely on precision, Thralar. We rely on instinct, and on knowing that sometimes technology isn't the answer. Thralar nodded, humbled. He'd come to Earth expecting to witness a primitive culture clinging to old tools, but instead he'd found a people who'd turned those tools into an art form. The simulated skirmish lingered in Thralar's mind long after the exercise ended. He had entered Earth's forests confident in Stanny precision, yet he left with an understanding that the humans' unpredictability, adaptability, and mastery of their primitive weapons held their own formidable power. The humans' methods weren't outdated, they were simply different, a form of resilience and resourcefulness that the Stanny had overlooked. Back aboard the Stannius main vessel, Thralar prepared for a debrief with Colonel Avery, who greeted him with a nod of respect. They had witnessed the best and worst of each other's tactics, and that shared experience now bound them with a subtle sense of camaraderie. Thralar, Avery began, you mentioned that energy weapons are what you rely on. But I'm curious, did you find anything valuable in our way of fighting? Thralar paused, reflecting on the chaotic yet effective strategies humans had displayed. Valuable indeed, he admitted. We Stanny value precision and control, yet I see now how much power there can be in unpredictability. Your soldiers use their surroundings like extensions of themselves, finding strength in simplicity and adapting seamlessly to circumstances we might struggle in. Avery nodded, clearly pleased. And we could learn from you too. There's something impressive about technology that minimizes collateral damage. Maybe instead of assuming one way's better, we both have something to gain. Thralar's eyes brightened. He had come to Earth with a mission to assess and understand, but now he saw an opportunity. Colonel Avery, perhaps, a collaboration would be beneficial. The Stanny could share the fundamentals of our energy weaponry. Imagine if your weapons could be recharged even in remote conditions as ours can. Avery smiled, interested. And in exchange we could teach your forces our field tactics, how to use terrain, camouflage, and adaptive maneuvers in rugged environments. He extended his hand. Deal? Thralar hesitated, then took Avery's hand, sealing the agreement. In that handshake he felt a shift, a sense that this simple gesture marked the beginning of a new alliance. The Stanny and humans spent the following days exchanging ideas, training alongside one another in both dense forests and open plains, combining Stanny precision with human adaptability. Stanny engineers studied human projectile weapons, and in turn human soldiers learned to wield non-lethal energy pulses, marveling at the control they offered. Their mutual respect grew, each side appreciating the balance of advanced technology with timeless adaptability. When the Stanny prepared to depart, Thralar and Avery exchanged one final handshake. Thank you, Colonel, Thralar said. You've shown us that true advancement isn't just in technology, it's in adaptability, in the willingness to learn from others. And you've shown us that sophistication has its place too, Avery replied, his expression one of quiet respect. Good luck, Thralar. Hope we meet again. As the Stanny vessel lifted into the sky, Thralar watched Earth fade below, his heart and mind transformed. The humans had left a mark on him, a reminder that sometimes the simplest tools carried the greatest strength.